Okay, we need to talk mainstream media and their recent treatment of both Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford. Hey guys, Fletch here bringing you another Fletch Talks video, and in this video we are going to be looking at the recent treatment by various news articles, mainly Daily Mail and the Mirror, upon their recent treatment of both Marcus Rashford and Mason Greenwood. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at the recent treatment of Mason Greenwood, and this seemed to really begin over a month ago, where Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden were both exposed for an incident that occurred in Iceland over a month ago. The pair were punished as a result of this incident being exposed and brought to life, being dropped from England's next game, which was against Denmark. But in reality, no one handled this situation very well. Yes, it was stupid of both Foden and Greenwood to both be caught in this situation in the first place, but England manager Gareth Southgate didn't help with his comments following this incident happening and following England's poor result against the Danes as a result. And ultimately, yes, they were punished, as I mentioned, but they're young. They made a mistake, and you'd think everyone would move on and they learn from it and just see where things go from there. However, fast forward a month later, and Greenwood is back in the mainstream media's crosshairs, with constant reports coming out that apparently he's not doing the right things behind the scenes, off the pitch, so to speak, to help towards his development of being a player. Things like turning up late for training, his effort levels and his attitude levels, and even his lack of sleep have all been called into questioning, all been written up into reports. And a couple of days ago, it seems to have all come to a head as another report came out, this time by the Mirror. They ran an article claiming that Manchester United officials are very worried over Greenwood's development and are scared that Greenwood may throw away his promising career. And they compared him to another starter of the Man United Academy from years and years ago in Ravel Morrison. Now, for those who don't know, Ravel Morrison was a former United player who came up through the youth setup at a young age, was in the same class as the likes of Paul Pogba. But this kid was heavily raved about. This kid was said to be head and shoulders above the rest in his class, so to speak. He was said to be the next breakout star. He was said to be that breakout potential. He was said to be at a world-class level given the right development and in a few years' time. And even Sir Alex Ferguson came out and heaped heavy praise on him at such a young age. But of course, as we all know, he never reached that potential for a number of reasons. That either he didn't develop right, or there were a number of there's been plenty of hints that stuff went off in his personal life and stuff that didn't quite help him reach his potential. And therefore, Morrison has always remained as one of football's what could have been stories. Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has constantly denied the reports of Greenwood doing things wrong off the pitch, and he, along with the club, have done their best to try and protect Greenwood from the mainstream media, as they now seem to have found their next young target to hound and harass. And it seems that that incident that happened in Iceland over a month ago is the catalyst, is the ignition that the mainstream media needed to find their next target. But many are calling these stories out and saying that these accusations aren't true and that these are all lies. And even Rio Ferdinand came out, called the Mirror out on Twitter and asking who these officials are. Seems like a major witch hunt to me and to everybody involved, and kind of leads me on to the next part of the story, which is about Marcus Rashford. Yes, as I mentioned, it's not just Greenwood that is getting this horrible mainstream media treatment, it's also his fellow teammate and fellow countryman who is also getting this treatment in the form of, obviously, Marcus Rashford. Again, over the weekend, the mainstream media and the Daily Mail in particular took a shot at Marcus Rashford, you know, Marcus Rashford, the guy who's taking on the government right now over free school meals and is doing himself and his family incredibly proud of making a difference in a world that is currently in absolute chaos. Yeah, that's say Marcus Rashford. When this whole pandemic thing really hit England in particular, the beginning of the first lockdown that happened like March, April time, the financial aspect of life became a major issue, if it wasn't already, but it became more of a major issue because of everything that was going on, of course. And it took centre stage, and of course, with the sometimes ridiculous amounts of wages and money that footballers especially are on these days, they became real scapegoats by government officials whenever the question of money and finances arose within various communities and keeping businesses and things afloat during these difficult times. And upon reflection, you'd have to say that a lot of footballers stepped up and went above and beyond to help out everybody within the communities and all and everything in between and so forth. But none more so than Rashford, who clearly and evidently went above and beyond with the free school meals campaign. He led the charge on a cause he felt passionately about and used his platform and status to a positive effect. And it was a real feel-good moment for everybody involved. Everyone close to Rashford, and for the nation to see someone so young do something so positive and fight against those in power. But this week, the Daily Mail decided to take a swipe at him, running an article that said, "What a result. Campaigning football star Marcus Rashford has bought 5 luxury homes worth more than £2 million. Rashford came out on Twitter and addressed the article saying, "I'm 23. I came from little. I need to protect not just my future, but my family's too. To do that, I made a decision at the beginning of 2020 to start investing more in property. Please do not run stories like this alongside references to campaigning." On its face, the article seems to have sarcastic tones, of course, the use of the "what a result" line, for example, and the fact that they mention the money aspect as if they're implying that despite his campaigning, he's still not doing enough because of how much he earns, and that with the money he has, he can be doing more by his own doing, putting his own money into the initiative that he's sparked than by asking for the government's help. Now, first of all, I personally don't have an issue or a problem with how anybody spends their money. They've earned it, they can spend it however they like, and guess what? Footballers are no exception. But the fact is, I'd assume that Rashford does donate a lot of his earnings to charity. I would safely bet that he does that, along with his campaigning and everything else that he's doing right now. I'd safely bet that he is doing a lot more to help others than even what we are seeing right now. Secondly, he doesn't even have to do this. This is the main point, that he doesn't have to take the responsibility of helping others. This responsibility that he's taken upon himself hasn't fallen squarely on his shoulders by default. He's taken the responsibility on himself, and when underprivileged families and kids needed help, he stepped up to the mark when the people in power and responsible for the well-being of these kind of underprivileged communities and everything like that failed to do so. A 23-year-old who is a footballer used his power, his status, and everything else that goes along with that to make a change to the currently messed up world we are living in for the better. And thirdly, this is an article from the Daily Mail. Anybody who knows the Daily Mail will know that this publication used to have what some may say was a bit of an agenda, and I say that with air marks because it clearly was an agenda, and it wasn't just a bit of it either, against Raheem Sterling. They ran a similar article on Sterling after England's disappointment at the 2016 European Championships in France, after the England winger bought a house for his mother. Now, the article on Sterling coincided with England's poor display at the Euro 2016 Championships and attempted to rile people up And the Rashford story, again, is to do the same thing. It's to rile people up, a shield, shall we say, for the government to use, and at the same time, some ammunition for that same group of people to use against him if things were to continue to escalate the way they're doing. Fortunately, the majority of people on social media have actually come to their senses and have defended him, and rightfully so. But to make this story even more laughable, to really put the story of a media agenda into complete context for everybody, Sterling and Rashford both get a target put on their back for buying property for either themselves or for their family. Phil Foden, a few years ago, did the same thing. Now, this is no fault of Phil Foden. I'm not saying Phil Foden is to blame here, but Phil Foden did the exact same thing a few years ago. And Daily Mail, they ran an article on it. He did the same thing, but he was given a more lenient soft spot by the media. He was praised for trying to keep his family together, and despite being so young, he had family values at heart, as seen in the article on the screen right now. And you can clearly see that there were two different agendas for these three stories, if you like. I'll leave you to see what I'm trying to get at by noticing the differences of these three people and the media's agenda. Again, I'm not blaming the players. This is squarely on the media, their agendas, and how wrong they are. But of course, this is just all one man's thoughts and one man's opinions on this particular topic. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the stories that are currently surrounding or have surrounded Raheem Sterling, Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, and Mason Greenwood in the past? What do you make of them? What do you make of the media's agenda behind them? Are we reading too much into it, or we're not reading enough into it? I want to know what you guys think. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things would be greatly appreciated as always. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.